Welcome, everyone, to the Nearshore Cafe podcast. I'm Brian Samson, your host. I've been doing nearshoring for a long time, and this is the podcast where we talk about all things nearshore. Before we dive in, I want to give a thanks to our sponsor, Plug Technologies, plugg.tech. Plug is a great way to connect with all the talent from Latin America to growing U.S. companies. If you're a CEO and you've ever thought about where in the world do I go to find talent, this is going to be the podcast for you. We're talking to Steve Edwards, and Steve has had quite a journey all around the world to find the right talent, and it led him to Latin America. So without further ado, let's welcome Steve to the show. Steve, great to have you.
Hey, thanks for having me today. Looking forward to it. We know when we talk, right? A little passion about finding the right developers can be a challenge, a make or break, and all that fun stuff.
Absolutely. Well, Steve, I want to just give a chance for you to share a little more about your story. So before we even dive into the craziness that we talked about before the show, just tell us more about Premier, what it is, and also how did you get here?
All right. So we'll start kind of in the beginning and through. I'm a small town Wisconsin boy that wasn't ready for college. I went to the Army after high school, jumped out of airplanes in the 82nd Airborne Division, then realized quickly financially it wasn't a good thing for me. I like to, like my mom says, that I had a champagne taste on a water budget back then. So I got out. I started to go to college at night while I was in the Army and knew what I wanted to do. And then I moved to Florida after I got out of the Army. Went to FAU, got a job in sales out of that as a stockbroker. So that was my first job out of college. Transitioned from there to a mortgage broker. And then after the mortgage industry kind of died back in 2007, I got recruited by some friends to do outside sales. And what we did is we would build sales teams. Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, a lot of them outsourced some of their sales from business to business, door to door, and retail sales. So I got recruited to run their B2B division, launched that, and worked for them. 4 years later, they came in and they said, we're going to shut down your division. You can either go to door-to-door sales or retail sales. And I'm like, I don't want either one of those. But the reason I bring that up is when you're building a sales team, how do you build a sales team? You go to all the job boards, all the job fairs, the colleges, the companies that are putting on, and you find your talent. Well, I ran into this company up in New Jersey, and I really liked the way that they did their events. It wasn't a daytime job fair where everybody was unemployed. This was an evening job fair. It was geared directly towards salespeople, and they did kind of a presentation format. Each company came in and stood in front of them and said, here's who we are, here's what we do, here's what we're looking for, here's why you should come work for us. I loved it. I was like, this is the most efficient job fair I've ever been to. So fast forward, when they laid me off, I went to the owner of that company and I said, I love what you do, but I don't want to work for you. So we negotiated for 6 months and I went in, I bought a license agreement, and I ran North Carolina down to Florida, Texas, and Arizona. So I was putting on in-person job fairs for 9 years. 2018, I had one of my mentors, or 2017, I had one of my mentors came to me and he's like, I just landed this company and they do virtual reality. Cool. He's like, man, I want you to get on a call with him. This guy wants to show you something. Great. Guy shows me a thing called a virtual job fair. Now, 2017, nobody was talking about virtual job fairs. And I'm like, this is the future. This is it. I instantly fell in love. I said, this is it. This is where I want to go. Well, the guy at the other company wasn't as big of a fan. We both put in some money. I was doing the virtual. He didn't want to. It was always a reason. We decided to finally part ways, right? So we parted ways mutually. He only wanted in person. I only wanted virtual. And I said, this is it. I'm going 100% virtual job fair. So it's 2008. No more in person for me, all virtual. Then I started having some issues with the company that was running the events. I look back now and I know I was asking them a lot. They were a startup at that point. They were a couple years into business, but I was asking them to do something that really nobody was doing yet. At that point, that market was so small, it was out there, and when I'm telling them, a lot of them didn't understand how I wanted to do it, because I was really taking what I did and try to put it in the virtual world. So finally, they messed up really, really bad on something, and it made me look bad, which my clients were upset about it, which I said, okay, I'm going to leave. I'm going to go cancel my contract with them. I went to another company, and they said, if pretty much in their contract was, if you use us, you can never build your own. My attorney goes, if you're going to do it, this is the time. So, we said, all right, we're going in, right? So we went on, and I know we're going to talk about the development side, so I won't get into too much, but I'll just say that I said, I'm all in. Going in, we're building Premier Virtual. We came out, we went and got, software development firm that we're going to get into in a minute. But that's where it came from. It really came from, here was my industry. I saw that people would rather apply online than wait in line. So I'm like, I just said, here's what it is. Here's how I can solve a problem. And at the time, I was talking to recruiters. I won't say the company, but phenomenal company, one of the best management training programs in the entire country. Love to hire athletes, love to hire people right out of college. All the recruiters are young, sharp, and that's what they're looking for. And they couldn't figure out virtual, right? The technology was still where they didn't understand it, and they had a hard time with it. So, getting it out, I knew there was going to be a 3-year process of me teaching everybody, here's really what it is. Now, 8 months in, as we're testing it, I decide, after we did our first test event, live one, I'm going to change my business model. So now, instead of me hosting the events where I'm going out and getting the organizations and the attendees, I decided to turn it into a true SaaS platform and license the thing. So now my developers didn't have to start over, but there was a lot of changes in how they built it when it was just for me to now everything else. So that put me a little behind schedule, a little there. But then once we started taking on clients, then we were in a really good situation. We launched in 2019. Everybody knows what happened in 2020, and that was just a big catalyst for what virtual could do, what remote work could do. And I think that, was it a blessing? Absolutely. Was it watching, really seeing that that's where the trend was going anyway, right? The technology was coming in. For virtual events, COVID just sped it up, and now it's, I think I was, at that time, the 5th main platform that was going to be out there. Now there's a lot more, right? Because a lot of people want to kind of jump in the mix and think that suddenly, it's so easy to build the software. And, even people, when we talk to vendors, are like, well, you just popped up because of COVID. And I'm like, do you understand? We've been building this for over a year. We launched last year. Like, you're not developing a powerful platform like it is in a couple days. But people that don't know technology, they think, oh, website, you can put it up easily. So that's where we got, and we got acquired last year, so we built a pretty big brand out there. So we got bought by Career.io, which is a phenomenal company with what they're doing as well. So, things have really worked well, and not just me, but, 3 of my competitors got acquired too. Pretty much the three biggest players in the industry all got acquired. So
yeah.
So here we are.
Yeah. So what I wanted to get into, maybe as a bridge to our eventual part, is you figured out technology. You didn't start as a tech guy. You weren't a computer science major. You were sociology, successful sales guy. Can you talk about what that was like as you started to learn how to build a SaaS company? What was the learning curve like for you?
It was a huge learning curve, and to this day, I'm still learning. It was it was tough because I knew, and I'll say this, and this isn't a bad thing, right? But my brain works different than a software engineer's. The way that I see things and they see things, right? We both are intelligent in our own ways, but we see things differently. So I really kind of took that role as, here's what I want in here. You put it down, you put it in there, right? So we took the ideas, myself and my business partner, Gary. Gary's a little bit more organized, a little bit more detailed for me. So he would build out kind of some of the schematics, and, I'd say, this is what we want. And, and it's like, we as a salesperson or a leader, I want to push this button right here, and this is what I want to happen. Whatever you're doing in between, you're doing it, right? I don't care how it gets there, but I want this button to do this button to do that. So it was more of, I had to learn, and it wasn't immediate. It wasn't until I finally hired on a director of IT that I learned a lot of that, right? Because the people that we had around early on in, we'll call it that role, they were more of, okay, we'll get it done. They weren't showing me. So, I would have these calls, and we're going to talk about this in a little bit. I had these calls. I'd have no clue what was going on. And I'd be like, so how long is it going to take? And how long is it going to, what's it going to cost me? That was my mindset. I need this done now. Like, what do you mean you're going to do this? It's going to take 3 months. So you're just building a website. Should be an overnight process, right? Because I was that guy that then when the clients came in, I'm like, I was that guy, just a year ago, and I can look at it now, and, we'll have some calls now, and I can take the majority of the calls, and I feel comfortable. I used to go, to a lot of these networking events, and I went from sales networking events to suddenly IT networking events. And I'm like, I do not fit in at these things. They're talking. I'm like,
yeah,
drink over here, please. Like, I had no clue what they were talking about, but it took me a long time to get it. And it's still, trying to learn, trying to get the people around you. That was, the big learning curve for me. I'm still not 100%, but I know when I have like my engineering calls, and I think it was Henry Ford that said it back in the day. It's like, I'm not the smartest man in here, but I can push a button and get the smartest man. And I kind of believe in that too. And that's really how I built my business. Is I don't know everything, but I know if I need something on HubSpot or operations, I can, hey, Gary. If I need something on the sales business development, Zach, something with the clients, Glenn, something with IT, Josh, I know who to call, and, or put them on the call that they need to. And I've built, really and a lot of people say, right, that team, that family atmosphere and stuff like that. But, we've ranked in the top place to work here in Florida a few years in a row now, because I truly believe that, because I'm going to go to them and say, man, I don't know. I don't always just say, this is my way. We have one of the biggest things in the platform that we want to put in, that I want to put in. And guess what? We're not putting it in. And it's, I want it, right? As a CEO, I should be able to get it, but it wasn't something that our clients wanted. And we really kind of built the business around what our clients want.
I think this is a great segue then of, you've got this great idea, non-technical founder. And the reason I'm hammering on this part is, I think there's a lot of people listening that can relate. They didn't get the computer science degree. They don't know how to code. They've got a product vision. Software's eating the world. You want to do something. Maybe they don't, like you said at the beginning, champagne taste, water budget. Take us from there. Like, what was your game plan? How did you think about, who should build this? How much should I budget? Where should I go? Should I hire somebody locally? Like, take us through that whole journey. And I know this is probably going to go around the world a little bit, and can't wait to hear more.
So, yeah, this is the fun part, right? This is, like we talked about, right? This is the one big chapter in my book that talks about all the challenges, because it is, to me, such a big thing. And I made mistakes. I lost a lot of money. because I didn't know. Right now, if I could go back today, if I could have found Jose, who was my director of IT, if I could have found him early on or somebody like him, I would have gave him stock in my business to help me, right? Because what I did is, did I lose you? No, okay. So here's what I did. I went and did what everybody used to do before ChatGPT. I went to Google, software development firms around me. That was it. So I went and I looked at a bunch of them, and I was really trying to stay here in South Florida where I live because I wanted to be able so I could walk into their shop, right? I'm going into something I have no clue, none. So I walk into the first shop, meetings right here. I think I had been connected with them somehow or somebody, but their office was 5 minutes from mine. So I get in there and I'm talking, and they're like, "We like your idea. 250 grand for it, and it'll take a year to develop." I'm like, "What are you talking about? 250 grand? I'm like, you're way out of the ballpark. And a year? It shouldn't take that long." He's like, "Yep, it's going to be 250 grand. You know, we're going to build all this. This is what we're going to do for you, right?" That's 250 grand without changes. Now, remember, I already told you I changed the business model once. So I walked out of there and I was like, "You guys are crazy," right? Like, it wasn't, but they were a shop that was here in the US. Now, I also should point out, I was bootstrapping this. There was no investors, there's no VCs, no angels. This was out of me and my wife's pocket, you know, and she didn't know everything out there. But that's for another time. But I was spending everything, right? And I knew it. But I went and I interviewed 3 other firms. Mm-hmm. Get on this one with this one firm, and they're like a big $60 million software development firm. They're big players. Interviewed them. I'm on a call with them. I didn't know anything they said. They had a beautiful PowerPoint. They're showing me everything, telling me what it's going to be. Project managers, this is the monthly thing. Here's what we're going to have. And I'm like, I don't understand anything you're telling me. I'm like, you're speaking Chinese to me right now, and I don't understand Chinese. Just tell me, how long is it going to take and how much is it going to cost me? So like, okay, you know, and they had their fee of what it was, and they were based out of India. And I was like, okay, I don't understand it, but you know, I liked where they were going on a monthly thing, right? And there was no commitment. I could say I want 1 developer, or I could say I want 10 developers. I love that process. And I'm only paying monthly. I was great with that. I'm like, I don't got to pay 250 grand up front. I'm paying, less. So then I went in my last company. I went and I talked to a couple other companies, but I narrowed it down to the kind of 3. So I went and I talked to this other one. They were in Boca, and I sat down as a husband and wife. And they talked to me in salesperson language. I understood everything. And they're like, we're not going to see you for 3 months. We're going to develop everything. Here's what it's going to be. Here's the cost. I said, I'll sign a 12-month contract with you right now to do this. If you give me a little discount. They're like, well, we won't do that, but we'll give you this for the first, this. And then after like 90 days, we'll give you a little bit of a discount, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay. Their dev shop, I thought they were in Boca. But all they did was outsource it to India. But I loved what they had to say. And I was like, I'm in. Let's go. I come back 3 months later, was nothing like I wanted. That was my first frustration with them. And then I was like, okay, we're doing it. And it was just slow. And I'd tell them what I wanted. And then there would be bugs. There'd be issues. And I'm like, something's going on here. And then I had a conversation with the owner, the husband, and him and I just butted heads. He didn't like it because I called him out that his developers were terrible, that they didn't understand what they're doing, that nothing was going the way. So him and I went, and I was like, that's it. I'm pulling it. I'm pulling away from you. Wife calls me. We don't have to do this. Like, I'll take over your account. Let's just you and I. He's just very passionate. And you called him out. And I'm like, because he sucks. So long story short, right? I'm very upfront about things. So long story short, I started working directly with her. We were going, and all of a sudden we had huge issues. We're having issue over issue, and they couldn't get what I wanted. And I kind of explain it like this is, let's just say they were a freshman in high school level of where they're at. And I was asking them sophomore and junior level stuff, and they couldn't do it. So I realized right at that point is I need to make a change. So then what I did, I went back to I went back to the company that was 250 grand, and I said, I got a prototype. How much are you going to be there? 250 grand, and that's nothing like you wanted. We have to start over from scratch. They're like, you should have went with us in the beginning. You wouldn't waste that money. And I was like, you're not that nice of a guy. Like, you could have changed it, right? You could have worked with me. I even said, what about a partnership in here? They didn't believe in the product enough to go that. So I went back to the other place, the big shop, and I said, okay, I'm going to switch over. So we did a middle of the night, I'm on with their devs, and we locked out the other company out of everything. We changed all the passwords, did just a takeover. Next morning, I emailed the other people. I said, we're no longer working with you, right? Contract's over. It was month to month. We were done. So I'm working with the other company now, kind of, right, hostile. We get in, takes a little bit of time, start having challenges. Same kind of challenges that we're having. And I'm kind of in a frustrating, they're not getting there. I want to leave them. But I'm like, I already switched once. Like, do I really want to start over? And this is what every person in my kind of stage at that point goes through. Right. And like, should I leave? Should I not leave? Am I going to start over? Because they kind of put it in your head that if you leave, you're going to start over. And so I was like, oh, I already did that once. I don't want to do it again. And then they did some more things. So I text the owner and I said, hey, man, I just want to let you know, CEO to CEO, here's what's going on with your company. And he goes, you don't mean anything to me. His text back, you don't mean anything to me. I was like, that's it, right? This guy's there. I talked to my attorney. I go, let's figure out how we can get out of this last one. My attorney goes, Steve, he goes, I looked it up. He goes, you'll be like the 120th lawsuit against this guy.
Oh my God.
He goes, this guy, he gets people like me, comes in, drags them through because he's got bigger pockets. And then he drags on these lawsuits until these companies can't pay, So guy didn't care. So I was like, you know what? We're going to have to figure out something. So this is when I went to my third development shop at this point. And this point I went right here in the US. It's more money. I went to a different company. I'd met them now I'm going to all these tech associations. So I met them and they were really good. They were good, but they were super expensive. And I just couldn't do it. It was a lot. And then all of a sudden, kind of, I was doing it, but then I'm like, hey, I'm paying you guys for a project manager, but I got a project manager on my side. Why am I paying double? So all of a sudden we came in, huge events coming, and our chat doesn't work. And I'm like, you need to fix the chat. And they're like, we can't do it. We can't get it done. I'm like, I have an event, and that's the number one thing in there is the chat. Like, we have to have this running, like we're in at this point, it's pre-COVID, right? We're not even into COVID yet. And I'm like, we got to do something. So I go out and I talk to a couple other firms. Well, now I'm within this tech association here in South Florida. So now I have contacts. So I go and I talk to two of the contacts that I know. One of them's like, so it'll be 20 grand. And I don't know if I can get it done. I'm like, well, that's not really reassuring. Talk to the other company. This guy's like, 5 grand and we guarantee we'll get it done. And I'm like, I've already gone through 2 of the cheap ones. Is this the right decision to make? Like, I'm like stressing, like, what do I do? I'm like, I got to take a chance. So I went, company's called 2 a.m. I went to them and I said, Matt, you got to get it done. So they brought one of their guys in, and guy crushed it, fixed the chat. We had 1 week, fixed it, fixed everything. And I said, I want him full time. So did you, I think you froze. Did you ask a question?
No, I'm good. No, just saying. Wow.
So guy did it. I'm like, I want him full time. So Matt's like, okay. We brought him in. And then I said, I want another one, Matt. I'm like, I like you guys. So at this point, I got 2 shops working on this thing. And the other shop, the guy calls me, like we kind of became friends a little bit again through this networking. And he's like, Steve, I see the writing on the wall. He goes, let's just go. You're moving obviously towards them. You're giving us less work, which is less money. Like, let's be done. So I parted ways with them. Then I went to Matt and I said, okay, bring me another one. And at this point, the software, and I know a lot of people listening here understand software, but I like to explain it in case there's somebody that was like me out there that didn't understand, right? If you take a car and your headlight breaks and you fix your headlight, and as soon as you fix your headlight, the back rear tire breaks. Then you put a bandage on that and you fix that, and then the muffler breaks. You fix the muffler, then the horn breaks. It was like they were putting Band-Aid on top of Band-Aid on top of Band-Aid to fix this legacy platform of ours. And I was so frustrated. We're having challenges. So I said, Matt, start from scratch. You guys got this working, right? Just make sure that this is running, but we're starting from scratch on a second platform because now we're in COVID. So I'm running a legacy platform here that's working now. We got it working, but it doesn't have all the features I want. And we're building something from scratch, So now we're, almost another year into developing this. So I'm running kind of 2 platforms at this time. But that's where Matt had, I had guys from Argentina, which it was there, Croatia. There were some other ones in South America, but I don't remember all of them. That they had, but I would say, this is what I need. So he would bring in an expert and we would get these things done. And it was great because I went up, I had 6 developers at one point, plus their DevOps guy. And it was just great because they were keeping one running, building another one, our legacy or our 2.0 platform. And it just, I've had a great relationship with them now. I think it's probably one of the best things is now that I found the relationship and I can have, I can call that owner over there and say, hey, I need this for a little bit, and his guys are great, and when we got acquired, I did lose some people. I lost my director of IT. I lost my director of marketing because now the parent company had all that already. And I was like, okay, and they had a lot of internal developers. They got a lot of internal developers over there. And I was kind of worried that I was going to lose mine, and we didn't. My developers have been phenomenal and they're taking on more projects and stuff like that. So I love the nearshore. I love the outsourcing of it because I think it's there. I just had, it's not of where the developers are. Sometimes I think it's the quality of what you're getting. And I think with some of these, these shops that are, in different countries that are charging you $25 an hour, and they're paying a project manager, a salesperson, another person, a team lead, and the developer. I'm like, how much is that developer really getting? Like $5 an hour. And I get it. There's a lot of developers in some of those countries, but I pay more now. And I wish I had this team when I built my original platform. You never know, right? I think you gotta make mistakes. And I think that's where, life is by learning the mistakes. But if I can tell I mentor a lot of kids now that are kids, I say guys that are like starting software companies. And I go, listen, you're going to get frustrated. If you don't have an IT guy on your team that knows something, you're going to get frustrated because these things take forever. I was at lunch with a guy last week and, he's telling me, I'm like, kind of warned you a little bit about who you were going with and you went the different direction because they promised you stuff and
yeah,
you're seeing it, right? And then it's like, again, we're thinking things are going to be quick, but they're building, you got to build the structure. But I was very fortunate with, Jose at the time Jose's like, listen, Steve, you don't build a house, you don't put the windows in first, right? You got to put the foundation down, and then you got, put up everything before you can put you got to put the studs up before you put the walls up. So it was like, I learned that, but I learned it a year in, and I didn't have the right things, and I was in, some mentor groups, but the mentor groups, the people that were mentoring me were more on sales and marketing side, not on the IT side. I didn't have that. I didn't have that person. If I would have went back, if I would have, let's say I could have had somebody early on that I could have said, hey, here's a percentage of my business, be this person. And I tried it. I did try it with a couple people. And I think now I know one guy probably is like, because he just saw when my book came out, he was like, congratulations. I remember when I was first there. And in my head, I'm like, bro, you remember I offered you a percentage of this business. And you said, no, you'd rather take cash up front. But that was a choice he made. I tried to get that because I didn't know a lot of the stuff.
Yeah. Steve, if we could go back, and it was a fair point you made that there's good developers everywhere, so we don't want to get too, general about regions and countries, but just from your own personal experience, what was it like working with Latin America, being based in Florida versus working across the ocean with those teams in India?
One of the reasons that and this is why I asked them to get some, because I wanted people in my same time zone. That was my biggest, at the time, that was my biggest motivator, because we had some people in Russia, Spain, Croatia. And I'm like, I need somebody in my time zone. Yes, they were there early in the mornings and stuff like that, but I didn't like that middle of the night stuff. They're doing stuff. Then I look in the morning, I'm like, this doesn't work. Right. And then trying to get on calls and stuff like that. It's a challenge, and I'll never say the language barrier, because I think, right, as long as people, right, I speak English, right, and I'm running the company. So, ideally I'd like it so I can understand them, but I'll never say that, right? I've never had a developer I'm just like, I just don't understand what you're saying. I've never had that. But they just talk in a different way, and they don't, how we explain things and how we put it down was very difficult. And I got Josh, who kind of runs my IT now. And he came in as just kind of on the support side, and now he's worked his way up in the company. And I tell him, I'm like, Josh, you know what makes you so successful as an IT guy is you can understand the business units and the IT side. So I would take stuff, I would show him drawings. I'm like, Josh, come in the office. I'm showing him drawings of what I want. And then he would go put it down so the developers understood it, which was great. And then again, so like my developers now, I'll be like, here's what I want. And I love it when they tell me, nope, that's not going to work. I'm like, why? Right. And they'll tell me, but they'll show me a better way. And I like that, so, some of them don't do that. Some of them say, you give them this, and that's how some people want it. I don't mind if my developers say no, if they can give me a better way. If they say no, and it's just, no, we're not going to do that, well, then we have a problem, but usually it's no, because there's a better way, or have you thought about it this way? And I'm like, that's a really good idea, so.
Yeah, from my personal experience, that's what really drew me to Latin America, is we get that pushback, we get different ideas. I strongly disagree, Brian, with this direction, but have you considered this?
Yeah, and it's good. They're in a time zone, right? I can get on a call with them. Yeah, like not the exact time zone, but we can get on, And here's another thing that I really think, and this is tough to find, very tough to find. You have to look at it, right? So when I look at my business, I look at it from the client standpoint of view, right? So who are my clients, or who are the people, end users on our platform, are job seekers and organizations. Now, some of them are older, some of them are younger, some of them are tech savvy, some of them aren't tech savvy. So you have to build that platform so that everybody can use it, right? In our world, it's got to be there. So what I told my developers is I go, sometimes I go, you're looking at it because you're intelligent, you're a developer, you're seeing like here's the way. But a regular, you know, candidate that's, maybe a blue collar job that's out there may not understand that.
Yeah.
And it took my developers a little bit of time to really understand that. And I'm like, we have to look at it from this lens over here, not just what looks good on the backside of things. You can make it too complex. Now, some softwares, great, they need to be that complex. Mine didn't. So, taking those developers and getting them to really look at it from that standpoint of view. So when they come in and say, well, you should do this, here's why we're not doing it this, because of this is the way that most candidates are going to look at it. And then they're like, oh, that makes sense. Right. So I can have, great conversations with my developers now, and we'll go back and forth and get the best way that works for the clients, right, and for them, right, the best overall way that's going to be there, that's not taking shortcuts, that's not jeopardizing security and stuff like that. How are we going to do this to make sure that this platform works when I hit this button and I want this to happen?
Yeah. Steve, when you think about just the devs you've worked with in Latin America, it sounds like you mentor a lot of other founders, a lot of people building technical products. Any like best practice advice on how to get the most out of your team in Latin America?
So this could either sound really good or really bad, right? We used to have 2-week sprints. Now we went to like 1-week sprints, but we have a weekly call with them. Slack is set up so that anytime they drop something in there, I can see what their question is. So having a great, kind of that open communication through Slack and weekly calls. And the weekly calls are, here's what's updating on the sprint that we're going, right? We use Jira, right? So we track everything on our Jira board. And Josh kind of tracks everything for me. But to me, it's the open communication and weekly communication. Even if it's a 10-minute call, they got to have it, right? Because they can get in, kind of tell you, here's where we're going, and then if they're doing really well, it's like, great, hey, here's where we're at, right? Oh, I finished all of these tickets in the sprint already. Well, now I can add other stuff in here. Or, hey, I'm a little behind. Okay, why are you behind? You can figure it out, and we loved our guys in Argentina. I will tell you, my old business partner just flew down there and he met up with the guy, and you don't see that a lot, right? But because it was such a, he was a great developer. So that one of them, and like I said, we've had some really, really good ones. We've had some ones that weren't as good.
Yeah, sure. Awesome. Well, Steve, this has been, oh, I'm sorry, please. I didn't mean to interrupt.
I know, I was going to say is, from a founder standpoint, if you're not a tech founder, get involved with the tech association that's in your local area. I don't care if it's Hawaii, Alaska, Florida, New York, Texas. They all have tech associations. Get involved with that. Now you're going to be around more people. Yes, it may be a little different in the beginning, right? Like it was for me, but you start to get to know people. You're knowing the language. You're understanding what that is, right? You're now respected in the community or in that community as well. Because it took a little bit of time for me to break in, but like I just won some awards, for the 2023, we won the best collaboration award with 3 other organizations for South Florida Tech Hub. I could have did that 4 years ago, right? I never would have been able to do that. But I built that community. And if you do that and get a mentor that's out there that either they're a mentor group, an association, or find somebody, I don't know all the mentor programs that are out there, but there's some really good ones. And you can find somebody that can answer those questions and help you on that. And one thing that I will tell, and I've told 2 people that I mentor right now this thing, do not ever be afraid to walk away from your dev shop. So many people get scared that, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to start over.
Yeah.
If I would have pulled the trigger sooner, I probably would have lost less money or spent less money. And it gets to be this point there, right? Both these two people I mentor, they know my whole story. They know everything. I sat down with them. I'm like, you gotta pull away. And both of them are like, I can't do it. Because their mindset is not in the right place. Their mindset is, oh my gosh, I'm gonna start over. And I'm like, you're not. People can come in, the developers learn code, right? My developers now are learning code from the parent companies to be able to, right? They're a good developer can come in and learn code. Yes, maybe they don't know Ruby and they only know PHP and Laravel. I get that, right? But you find another dev shop that writes in their language. Don't be afraid. It'll cost you less money in the long run and less headaches. I had hair before I started the software company. Not a full head of hair. So.
Yeah. Awesome advice. This is gold. Steve, this has been absolutely fantastic. I mean, so many takeaways for non-technical people thinking about software, shopping, looking at all around the world, trade-offs, all that stuff. So huge thank you. Where can people find you? Tell us more about where they can find Premier Virtual, where they can find you. And
so Premier Virtual is real easy. It's premiervirtual.com. My email is steve@premiervirtual.com. Also, if you're looking for, right, we had 30 minutes to go over a lot of stuff, right? To kind of talk nearshore that's here. I just wrote a book. It's called Weeding Through the BS from Idea to Acquisition. Just got published. It's on Amazon. You can Google Weeding Through the BS book and it's there. But any entrepreneur, it's great for because it's going to tell you the challenges. A lot of people see, hey, here's the success, right? Entrepreneur, built a business, got his business acquired. That's kind of the goal of a lot of people out there. But it talks about the pitfalls and the challenges that are in there, right? I have a whole chapter. I think it's the longest chapter in the book too, all dedicated to what your podcast is about, right? Is why choosing the right developer, right? Why nearshore is so important and good, and why they should do it sooner than later. And it talks about that in the book because that was such a big challenge to me. But yeah, they can always reach out to me. I'm on LinkedIn, Stephen G. Edwards. That's on there. Look me up. And if anybody ever wants, I'm on Veterari as well. If you're a veteran and you're looking for mentorship, they can find me on Veterari.
Amazing. Steve, thanks so much for the time. Let me just give a quick shout out again to our sponsor, Plug Technologies, plugg.tech. Great way to connect to developers all over Latin America with U.S. companies. Thanks everyone for listening to the Nearshore Cafe podcast, and a big thanks again to Steve. We'll see you next time.
All right. Thanks for having me, Brian.